I'm not trying to be a freak here, but if you look closely, you can see this diamond shape on Carlotta's shoes. Nice attention to detail. But you know what is freaky? The amount of damage this new 5-star dishes out, not to mention how insanely cool her moves are. And so in this video, I'm going to showcase Carlotta's abilities, explain what's the best way to build her, and in which teams she thrives. So if you're interested in learning how to build Carlotta or still trying to decide if she's worth pulling for, then this is the video you need to watch. As always, just a quick reminder, the footage and Carlotta's stats shown here are from a test server, so content is subject to change. Oh, and Wuthering Waves 2.0 just launched, and it's now also available on PS5, but be sure to log back into the game to obtain 1,600 astrites, free Sanhua's costume, and a bunch more rewards. Alright, so why is Carlotta insane? Well, besides the fact her animations are top-notch, she also delivers big bursts of damage. Like, this is the premium 5-star Glacio damage dealer, and she's very good against single targets. On top of that, she's got a couple of viable builds, and her rotations are pretty easy to learn. If that's not enough, she's also able to ignore enemies' defense, and her Resonance Liberation is quite unique. Oh, and did I mention she's the first 5-star pistols user, but she fights with them completely differently than what we're used to? Yeah, she's that cool. But that's the basic overview of her best selling points. How does she actually work then? Well, let's start by looking at her normal attacks, and she actually has two sets of them. Initially, she can perform 2 hits with the pistols, and you will then notice she gains 3 of these things called moldable crystals, or simply crystals, which I'll explain in full in just a moment, but for now, if you start a new normal attack, she will actually perform a 3-hit combo. And get this, she combines her pistols into a shotgun. Not only that, you know how normally you cannot use pistols to parry attacks? Well, with these shotgun attacks specifically, you can. But basically, while she has crystals, she will deliver these normal attacks with the shotgun. Now, she also has a cool mid-air attack where she will plunge to the ground, but if you quickly press normal attack afterwards, she will then flip over and deliver additional attack, which will grant some crystals. Actually, you know what? Let's quickly go over the 3 major mechanics that Carlotta has, which are crystals, substance, and final bow. Okay, so you saw crystals. These stacks appear next to her, but you can also see the current amount above the HP bar, and you can gain them from specific actions. Now, besides transforming her normal attacks, the actual main reason why you need them is that they allow you to build up the Forte gauge, and whenever these crystals are consumed, you obtain substance, or basically points for Forte gauge. And when the bar is full, 2 things happen. First, if you hold down the attack button, she will perform this super cool attack called Imminent Oblivion, and it will then go into 22-second cooldown, which you can track visually below the HP bar. And when this crystal becomes red, that means she can perform Imminent Oblivion again. If for some reason you have full Forte gauge bar and you hold down the attack when cooldown is not over yet, she will consume all substance, but instead deliver a powered up heavy attack called Containment Tactics. Just keep in mind, this heavy attack is much weaker than Imminent Oblivion. Either way, both of these heavy attacks will reduce skills cooldown by 6 seconds. Now, the other important thing that happens when Carlotta has full substance, this icon will appear and it indicates she now has the final bow buff, which means the next time she casts her Resonance Liberation, all of the damage multipliers for it will be increased by 80%, and then after Resonance Liberation is over, you lose this buff and need to rebuild substance to maximum amount. So, in other words, make sure to achieve maximum Forte gauge called Substance, which will then allow her to unleash a powerful heavy attack, and it will boost her Resonance Liberation the next time she uses it. Alright, we already know that to gain Substance, she needs to consume crystals. So what are the ways you can gain them and consume them? Well, in terms of gaining them, you can have up to 6 of them at most, and I already showed you that 3 crystals can be gained by performing the 2-hit normal attack combo. Then she can also gain 3 crystals when doing a heavy attack. This is the variant when her Forte gauge is not full and can be easily spammed. In fact, if you just want to quickly gain the 3 crystals, you can dash cancel it to save time. Also, if you're about to ask if she has an aimed attack as a pistol user, no, this heavy attack is the way she fights with her pistols, no aiming. Anyway, she can also gain 3 crystals from that plunge attack followed by a normal attack, which I already showed you, and it's called Customary Greetings. And if you dodge successfully, she also gains 3 crystals. Then, by activating her skill, she will gain 3 crystals. And finally, when doing her intro attack, which by the way just deals damage, she will also gain 3 crystals. Long story short, each of these actions allow her to gain 3 crystals. So just a combination of 2 of them is enough to max them out. But how do you consume them? Well, the main way is going to be the skill. You see, initially when you tap the skill, she deals damage, immobilizes the target for 1.5 seconds, and provides 3 crystals. But you will notice her skill button lights up now, and if you press it again, she jumps into air, performs an attack called Chromatic Splendor, and all the crystals are consumed, granting 10 substance points for each crystal. So if you had 6 of them, 60 points. But as you saw it, she can also consume them when doing those shotgun normal attacks, so each hit restores 10 points, so 3-hit combo, 30 points. And then she also gains 10 points for every crystal when using dodge counter. Finally, you can also gain 30 points by just simply activating her intro skill. No need to consume the crystals, so if you land her intro, she gains 3 crystals and 30 points immediately. Okay, so these are the ways she can consume the crystals, and remember, she only needs 120 substance points to max out her Forte gauge. And then you do the special heavy attack and power up her Resonance Liberation. Speaking of which, her Resonance Liberation is really fun to use, and it's also pretty unique. So initially when it's activated, it will deliver a big hit to targets in an area, and then they become marked with this debuff called Deconstruction, which for 4 seconds allows incoming damage to ignore 18% of enemies' defense. If that's not enough, you will notice her ultimate is still glowing. In fact, her Forte gauge is different too. Well, that's because she's in a Twilight Tango state, and now if you press the ultimate or normal attack button, she will do this cool dash depending on which direction you've chose to move and deliver a big shot attack called Death Knell, which you can do up to 4 times. Once 4 shots are delivered, she will perform this animation and deliver the biggest attack called Fatal Finale. One thing to keep in mind though, any substance she had is lost when activating the ultimate, and she cannot gain any more of it until her Twilight Tango state is over. By the way, that defense debuff on enemies, yeah, you can actually apply it with intro skill, resonance skill's second tap, and then Imminent Oblivion as well as Death Knell. All of them will unleash this debuff when you unlock the second inherent skill. And as for the first inherent skill, basically it gives her immunity to damage or interruptions when she's launched into mid-air from the skill. Oh, and the stamina cost for flight is also reduced by 20%, which is pretty useful for exploring the new region. Alright, finally, let me quickly show you one of the rotations. Keep in mind, there's multiple ways you can build up her Forte gauge, and I'm just showing one of them. But for example, assuming you're starting off with 0 substance, you can do something like double tap the skill, and then in mid-air use her new Echo Sentry construct and swap cancel to next teammate. Continue with those teammates to set up buffs, and then when ready, perform Carlotta's intro, followed by double tapping her skill, which again sends you into mid-air, so land with that plunge attack, and follow it up with Imminent Oblivion, since now she has full Forte gauge, and immediately activate her ultimate, shoot 4 times with it, and finish off with that one big shot. Afterwards, yet again, double tap her skill and trigger the outro by switching to the next teammate. And that's basically it when it comes to Carlotta's kit and how she works. Next, let's take a look at the ways you can build her. Now, one thing you should know first, the majority of Carlotta's damage is categorized as skill damage. This includes Imminent Oblivion and her ultimate, so keep that in mind when I recommend anything that has skill damage boosting. Anyway, weapons. What options do we have? Well, starting from the top, her signature pistols, called The Last Dance, are obviously the best in slot choice, and they provide a beefy crit damage substat, while the passive gives a nice default 12% attack boost. Plus, whenever intro or ultimate is casted, her skill damage is boosted by 48% for 5 seconds. So yeah, highly powerful weapon. Still, her second best option would be Static Mist. I know, if you have more Teffy, it's gonna be hard to tell him it's time to give these up. But yeah, this is basically her second best choice, has a decent critical rate substat, and its passive can be helpful sometimes as well. But moving over to 4-star options, honestly, most of them are kinda in the same league, and I would say Thunderbolt, the Battle Pass pistols, are pretty decent if you can achieve a good crit rate and damage ratio. But the new Renacita, Craftable, Romance, and Farewell should be working properly on Carlotta, since they will boost her attack whenever she deals damage to enemies with a negative status. And since she can apply and maintain that defense ignore debuff in multiple ways, this weapon should be good. There's also Undying Flame, which gives a simple but useful skill damage boost for 15 seconds after triggering her intro. Then we also have Relativistic Jet, which is fine, and then there's Nova Burst if you can do a lot of dodging or dashing to maintain the passive. Finally, even the generic craftable pistols number 26 can be decent, provided you don't get hit, so up to you. But all in all, most of these 4 stars are about the same, and I would say these 3 options are slightly better, although when comparing them to her signature pistols, they will deal about 20 to 26% or so less damage. Okay, moving over, let's talk about echoes. So with the 2.0 version, 5 new echo sets have been added into the game, and the one called Frosty Resolve is absolutely best in slot choice for Carlotta. So the 2 set grants 12% skill damage, and 5 set will boost Glacio damage by 22.5% for 15 seconds whenever a skill is casted, and when you cast Resonance Liberation, then skill damage will be boosted by 18% for 5 seconds, stacking up to 2 times. So in other words, you gain all these stats from this set. It's pretty crazy. Oh, and let's not forget, by using this set's Sentry construct as the main echo, it by default gives 12% Glacio and skill damage boost. Like, you don't even need to activate it, it just provides these stats passively. But if you do use it, it can deal pretty good damage, and it can be empowered after the ultimate to freeze enemies and reset its cooldown. Still, as of making this video, it's just the start of 2.0 update, and it will take some time to farm up this set. So in the meantime, I recommend using Lingering Tunes or Freezing Frost sets. Although Lingering Tunes with Abomination will be slightly better due to how much time you spent on field with Carlotta, since she can easily stack up the attack bonuses from this set. Now, as for the stats, I'm gonna be honest with you, this might be shocking to hear, but 43311 is the best choice. Anyway, for the 4 cost echo, crit rate or crit damage. For 3 costs, go with double Glacio damage, but it's fine if one of them is attack percent. And then for 1 costs, obviously go with attack percent main stats. And as for substats, prioritize obtaining critical rate and damage, then skill damage and attack percent. But if you roll into any energy regen, that's also fine. But yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to her build, and for video skippers, here's an overview of everything you need to know, including her skills leveling priority. So, what's the top meta team for Carlotta? Well, hang on a moment. We also need to talk about her outro skill, because it does so many different things. Okay, it just deals damage, but it's actually a pretty big number. So you better make sure to have her concerto bar full when you switch out, because it's definitely worth triggering it. Anyway, back to teams. Because she's a Glacio unit and the majority of her damage is skill damage, naturally, Jeji is going to be her best teammate, since her outro boosts both of these stats. If that's not enough, her coordinated attacks will also be super useful. So slap on Jeji Moonlit Set, or even the new Imperium Anthem can work as well, since the 5 set boosts active units' attack by 20% whenever a coordinated attack lands a critical hit. So if that happens and you're on field with Carlotta, her attack will be boosted. And then, as for the third teammate, either Shorekeeper or Verena will be excellent choices. Shorekeeper does offer critical rate and damage boosting, among other benefits, but her field time is a bit longer than Verena's, so it's up to you which one do you value more. But yeah, that's basically the best team core to go for, and as for some alternatives, if you don't have Jeji, Lumi can be used instead of her, since her outro can amplify skill damage by 38%, which is pretty huge. And then there's also Tao Chi, who has almost the same outro, except it lasts 4 seconds longer, but it does take a while to build up her concerto bar. However, if you do have an S6 Lumi, that extra attack boost will be highly valuable, and she's definitely second best choice if you don't have Jeji. Finally, you can go with Baiji as your budget healer and damage amplifier. Okay, it's time we take a look at her sequences and see what is the best way to upgrade her. And starting with the first sequence, it's got a bunch of nice quality of life upgrades. First part of this sequence says that her damage against enemies afflicted with the defense ignore debuff will increase her critical rate by 12.5%, so a very sizable boost. And then when unleashing Chromatic Splendor, which is the second activation of the skill, it will now restore 30 extra substance points. Then the second sequence boosts the final hit of her Resonance Liberation, and that is actually quite a big upgrade, since this is her hardest hitting attack, so it's always nice to achieve those big funny numbers. Moving over to the third sequence, this one's pretty crazy because her outro will now unleash 1 extra attack with a super fat multiplier, but in addition, her skill damage multipliers will also gain a chunky increase. But enough with being selfish, and with fourth sequence, she will now boost everyone's skill damage by 25% for 30 seconds after she uses one of her heavy attacks, which is nice if you decide to play her in quick swap teams. Next, fifth sequence boosts her Imminent Oblivion attack by a good amount, and then finally, we have the 6th sequence. It will boost the damage of her death nail shots, plus those smaller crystal hits the shot delivers, well, now the amount will be doubled. And on top of that, these shots will now also immobilize targets for 1.5 seconds, kinda like the way her skill does. So yeah, this one's pretty crazy, not gonna lie. But anyway, assuming you want to make her stronger through the gacha system, should you go for her sequences or signature weapon? Well, I would say her weapon is going to be a better choice, since it gives her a massive advantage over other options, while at the same time, if any of you have built Chixia, these pistols are a massive upgrade for her as well. And hey, you can share this signature with both of them in Tower of Adversity. Otherwise, I'd say first sequence is great for smoother combat experience, while second and third ones offer amazing upgrade to personal damage. However, keep in mind Jeji's banner is also going to be running alongside Carlotta's, and she's the best teammate for her, so I'd get her if you're still looking for additional ways to upgrade team comps. And yeah, overall, I would say Carlotta is an amazing Glacio DPS. Her single target damage delivery is one of the best, and she's pretty easy to understand once you get the hang of building crystals and substance. So if you want a strong character that feels quite different from others, since she's using pistols, then by all means, go for it. Just make sure to always spend responsibly. Anyway, hope you found this video useful, and as always, it takes a long time to make these guides, so I'd really appreciate it if you could press the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.